screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones, the holly suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The papacy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful. Friends, tonight on Rogue Ways, we will hear about a groundbreaking documentary that explores the idea that who we really are is much more than our physical bodies and human personality. Featuring interviews with 60 experts in the fields of mediumship, channeling, near-death, and other spiritually transformative experiences, the film focuses on remembering our true nature as eternal spiritual beings, and how we can use that knowledge to improve our lives while we are still here in the physical. In order to do that, we will talk with the man who received the call to curate and create this masterful film, Peter Alessandria, photographer, author, and documentarian. Peter, how are you? And welcome to Rogue Ways.
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. It's been a while. I'm glad we get to connect here today and talk about this film. I am very biased of why I love this film, but I love the idea. I love your call to be able to create this, and that you answered that call so beautifully, and I'm excited to dive into it with you today. First, I want to remind my beautiful audience out there that I'm so grateful for all of you for being here and for being you. Thank you for loving Rogue Ways, sharing it with your friends, talking about it, liking, sharing, subscribing, all the things, all the commenting that you do. It all matters, to overcome the algorithms of suppression and otherwise. So thank you so much for your attention, your energy, and your sharing. You can always find more from me. Check out my books, my one-on-one spiritual healing sessions, tarot, and more. My orgone that I create for you all to be able to uplift your space and energy. All of that is at rogueways.org. And so you can find more there. And also you can become a free or paid subscriber at Substack, where I have my channeled messages and more. There's also just articles there that are, of course, uplifting and wonderful. And so there's free content there, and there's also the channeled messages for the paid subscribers. Free or paid, you get something out of it. It's also a great way to stay in touch. So go over to rogueways.substack.com and get all of that good stuff. Thank you again for being here and being you. And Peter, back to you with the pointless question of the episode. What is a favorite holiday memory you have? We're in this Christmas season here as we're recording this timeless content. So do you have a favorite holiday memory or sort of energy of the season that you connect with?
Well, as far as a particular memory goes, I grew up in the New York City area, and we had a big snowstorm one year. I don't know if it was on Christmas, but it was around the holidays. And my dad decided that we were going to go. So I guess the night before the storm, we went to visit my aunt and my cousins, and we were all sleeping over there. And the next day, the whole city was just covered in snow. Everything came to a grinding halt. It took hours for them to clear the streets. But for some reason, my dad was very interested in getting us back to the house. So we walked. And I was probably about 7 years old, and my brother was probably about 4 years old. And the snow was, as a 7-year-old, the snow was up to my waist. And it became one of the longest walks that I've ever had in my life. And I'm not sure what my dad was thinking. We did get home safely, but that thought just sticks with me. We were celebrating the holidays with family, and then all of a sudden we're in this blizzard and trudging home in the snow. I have no idea. That just popped into my head a minute ago when you asked about it. I haven't thought about that in years. So that's my pointless, my memory.
Your little 7-year-old self is like, could we just stay in the happy, warm Christmas time environment? Why are we doing this? Did that make you hate snow? I feel like that's kind of an overwhelming snow experience.
I don't know that I hated snow. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the cold weather. But as a kid, I mean, it was kind of, I guess the way it started out was an adventure. We're gonna walk home in this blizzard and go outside, and it was actually a really nice day when the snow had stopped, the sun came out and all that. So it started out as an adventure, but it didn't end up that way. It was brutal. My dad had to carry my brother the whole way. It was quite an ordeal.
I have these experiences too in my mind. I don't know if they're similar to the one you're describing, but where I sort of realize I don't think adults know everything, actually. I'm pretty sure they're not always sure what's going on and they're not always making the best decisions. And maybe that felt that way to you.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
I love it. Do you have a positive experience of the holiday in general? I know some people are like, I don't know, it's overwhelming. And other people are like, yes, this is the best time of the year.
Yeah, the good news is, my family, we get along on the holidays. We're actually, people are pretty much well behaved. It's actually a pretty joyous time. It's the time between the holidays that can be challenging. But,
Yeah.
holidays, we do pretty well. So I'm looking forward. We're actually going to see my mom tomorrow. It's her birthday. She lives on Long Island, and I'm going to go visit her with my sister and her 3 kids. And then we're going to go back to Long Island for Christmas Eve to see the cousins and all of that. So.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, that's really nice. I love that. I love the holidays myself too. I'm always excited for this type of year. My birthday just happened too, so your mother and I have similar energies perhaps. But let's get into the film. This film is so exciting. I know you've been working on it for a while. It's coming closer and closer to perfection, if it's not already perfected. And so tell us first how you were called to create this film. What brought you to it? It's very unlike the rest of your work. Am I wrong?
Well, it's a natural evolution, I think, for me and my work. So, I started on this 30 years ago in the sense of this spiritual awakening that I've been on, and just having a general kind of interest in the bigger questions. Who are we? What's really going on here? How did we get here? What happens after we die? So I've had this innate curiosity. I've lived a very quote unquote normal life. I grew up in the New York City area. I went to law school. I went to business school. I moved my life to Los Angeles for many years and worked in the film business and had a pretty normal, I guess what you would consider average kind of life. But it was actually after I moved to California, I was in my 20s, and I became very interested. So the thing that was great about California was there was all these opportunities for like spiritual growth and personal growth workshops and all this other stuff. I hadn't been exposed to that in New York on the East Coast. And I just kind of gravitated towards that and started just investigating who am I and, what's going on here. I also had some issues with some addictions and stuff. And I eventually got into 12-step recovery programs. That was very helpful in kind of moving me along a spiritual path. And I had what I consider a spiritual awakening, working the 12 steps. So it's been a long progression. And in the meantime, my day job was, what it was. And then my nights and weekends, I would spend a lot of time studying spiritual material, doing workshops, retreats and stuff on the weekends. So I had this innate kind of knowledge or innate curiosity and began to gather knowledge. And the direct impetus for the film started probably in 2018 or 2019. I had a lot was going on then for me, but one of the things that happened was I injured myself and I was out of work for a while. And so I had an opportunity to work on my own book, which maybe we'll talk about. But at the same time, I read a novel by William Buhlman, and William talks a lot about out-of-body experiences. He was affiliated with the Monroe Institute for a long time, and he had a lot of nonfiction books, but then he also wrote this novel called Adventures in the Afterlife. And I read that book, and it really kind of rocked my world. I mean, I knew a little bit about kind of near-death experiences, a little bit about the discussion about the afterlife and out-of-body experiences, but something about reading that novel. Now, I eventually optioned the novel, and I plan to turn it into a feature film. I've written a screenplay based on that book. But while I was doing the research for that, I started watching a lot of YouTube videos for near-death experiencers. And again, I was vaguely familiar, but I really kind of got into it. Then the pandemic hit, and we all had a lot of time on our hands, and I dove in even more. And over the last, since 2020, 2021, 2022, I was continuing on that kind of trajectory, working on the screenplay for this film. And what happened was, at a certain point, I started reaching out to some of the people that I was watching the interviews with on YouTube. And a lot of them got back to me, and we ended up Zooming, doing kind of Zoom calls and had a lot of great conversations. I wasn't sure why I was even reaching out to these people. I wasn't sure why they were saying yes to me. But I started forming some relationships, and then there's a gentleman named Christian Sundberg Christian has had pre-birth memories, and he was doing a lot of interviews, and I reached out to him, and we had a call scheduled, a Zoom scheduled, and he was familiar with William Buhlman's work and all that. And that morning, I literally, Lindsay, I was waiting for the toast to pop. And when the toast popped up waiting to make my breakfast, and the toast pops up and this idea pops into my head, literally. And the idea is you got to make a documentary about all this. So when I talked to Christian later that day, I pitched him on the idea, and he said, yeah, I'd love to do it. Now, he wasn't traveling at the time, so I had to go to him. He was in Pennsylvania, in Erie, Pennsylvania. So I had to pack up all my equipment and go drive out there to see him. But he was one of the first people that said yes. Then I found a bunch of local people here in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey where I am, channels, psychics, mediums, a couple of NDEers. And I started just doing more and more of these interviews. And it just kind of took on a life of its own. And it's satisfying my curiosity. It's turned out to be a lot of fun. I love the time that we spent together. When you were here, and I just love hanging out with you guys and getting your wisdom. See, I haven't had a near-death experience. I haven't even really had what I would consider a spiritually transformative experience, although it has been a slow progression for me of kind of expanding my consciousness, my awareness. But it's like there's nothing else I'd rather do. There's nothing else I'm really interested in. And I do feel like this is my soul's plan, my soul's mission. This is why I'm here. And formed a production company last year called Mindful Entertainment, as opposed to Mindless Entertainment. And I have a bunch of projects that I want to do. And the one thing they have in common is some of them are narrative fiction, some of them this documentary, short film that I want to do, animated short film. But they're all, for me, they all have to be spiritually uplifting, empowering. I don't want to put any negative, I don't want to scare anybody. I don't want anybody to feel guilty. I don't want anybody to, I really want the work that I put out there, after having spent almost 20 years in Hollywood, whatever I put out has to have a positive impact. It has to have a life-affirming, empowering message to it. And that's one of the things I love about this documentary, this film. And I started screening it. I actually have a screening coming up at the end, towards the end of January here in New Jersey. The film is not done. I actually have 4 more interviews scheduled over the next few weeks. I have a bunch of editing to do. I've only edited about half the film. I have close to about 100 hours of footage. And I realized recently that I have too much footage for one film, but not enough for a series. And I think ultimately I'm gonna put it out there in the world as some kind of a series. So, but I have enough, so I showed a preview in Ireland a couple of weeks ago, of all places. There's a whole reason why that happened. But I did a 2.5-hour preview there, and people loved it. I did a like hour-and-a-half preview at the International Association for Near-Death Studies annual conference in Phoenix at the end of August. People loved it. So people are responding, and a bunch of people have seen it privately. And it seems to be accomplishing my goal, which is to raise consciousness, to raise awareness, to give people another way to look at who and what we think we are. Because I think that's the most important question we can ask is, who are we? Who am I? Who do I think? Actually, a better question is, who do you think you are? Because who we think we are is exactly who we're going to end up being in life. So moving us from this idea that we're these physical bodies that have a limited lifespan, and you got to get what you can get while you can get it, and everybody else we're in competition with everybody else for scarce resources and all the stuff that runs us. What if none of that was true? Right? What if that's not who we are? And what if there's something much bigger going on? So that's my hope, is the film is going to raise some consciousness, help to wake some people up. A lot of people are already awakening. There seems to be this evolution of consciousness, this ascension. And, I want to play my small part in that. And I love the process of making movies and all of that. So it's been great.
That's so perfect. It's really beautiful that you followed this. I love the understanding you have too, that you're sharing that this was like a sort of stretched out, slower process over your life that brought you to this point. It wasn't just this sudden shift and this sudden awareness and this sudden thing. And I think sometimes people expect those, what you called spiritually transformative moments, to either occur or not. And really, it is more often, I think, for people that it is a sort of slower, it's all starting to congeal and you're starting to understand and starting to see, and you're letting go of old habits and old understandings and old ways of viewing the world. And these newer ones are coming into being, which doesn't mean sometimes it isn't a bit quick, like the toaster popping up, right? Saying, make a movie. Like sometimes it is that quick also. But both are really necessary to understand about ourselves. So I also, it's fascinating to me because what I see most often is that people who are called to a more spiritual set of worldly activities, right? Our career and our production, what we're doing and creating is more spiritual in nature. They tend to then receive faster, I'll say, maybe understanding and enlightenment or healing as well, and transformation. Because when you give this to other people, you're going to receive it at a higher volume too. So who knows, maybe your spiritually transformative experience is on its way, in part at least because of this work that you're committed to doing.
Yeah, I'm not the person I was when I started 2 years ago, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And you may or may not remember, in the middle of all this, my younger brother passed away,
yeah.
completely unexpected. So that was really kind of a test for me. How much do I really believe all this stuff? I mean, I'm interviewing all these people who've died and come back, and they tell these wonderful stories, but, do I really believe that? So that was a good test for me. And I think now looking back on it, I really think that was part of my soul agreement with him, my brother. And it's been very interesting, and I really had to look. It derailed me. There's about 3 months I wasn't able to do anything with the movie or anything else in my life, really. I was helping my sister in Florida with his estate, but I was the grief. So, my dad passed in 2019. That was another part of the process when I found that book, that novel, Adventures in the Afterlife. My dad had just passed, and I had a reading with a psychic, and she actually gave me a message from my dad. I didn't go for that reason. I was trying to find out about what to do with this movie, the other movie. Yeah. And the first thing she said is, "Are you open to communication from the other side?" And I was like, "I guess, yeah." And she came through. She came through with because I wasn't even thinking in those terms. Yeah. But my dad came through, and that was sad. That was difficult. But when my brother passed, the amount of sadness, and this is what I would say to anybody who's listening, it was really important for me to let myself have my feelings, not judge myself. It's like, well, don't you believe that life is eternal and we're spiritual beings and there really is no such thing as death? And, and it was like, no, I had to, first of all, we're here to have a human experience. And part of the human experience is feeling our feelings and experiencing everything that this plane has to offer. So I have to say the level of grief, it was way beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I was so sad, felt like such a loss. I had some regrets. What was interesting, Lindsay, was he passed in May of 2023. And I felt called to go see him in April. I hadn't seen him in 2 years. And I just felt a calling to go. And I went and visited him and stayed with him for a week. And we were never estranged or anything like that, but we weren't as close as we could have been. So there was definitely an opportunity to work through some stuff that week and to just, I've been working a lot on things like forgiveness, just trying to be a better person in my relationships. And so I got an opportunity to work on all of that while I was there. And it was good. I mean, I feel like we made some progress. And then a couple weeks later, he died, completely unexpected. And so I could see that was all part of this for me as well, that process. So what helped me snap out of there's no time limit. You feel as sad as you need to feel for as long as you need to feel it, with the understanding that maybe there is something to learn from the experience, and maybe there is another reality that we're not consciously aware of, most of us. And so it was coming back to the film that helped me pull out of that. I started watching some of the interviews I had done previously that I hadn't watched yet, and that helped me heal and move out of that. And now I'm dedicating the film to him. And I smile when I say that because I'm pretty sure he was a pretty firm non-believer in the afterlife. And now he's got a film about the afterlife dedicated to him. And I think he's chuckling. And the other thing is, a lot of the people that I interview for the film are mediums. And he's come through several times. In fact, I was with a medium when I got the news that he had passed. And she told me, you know, she's the one who said, you better answer your phone, because I was ignoring it. And so he's come through a few times now. So I feel like he's part of this. He's just not present in the physical with me.
Yeah. Oh, it's so important. You know, this is actually there's sort of this like spiritual abuse that goes on when people are like, why are you sad? You know better. Like you said, like you understand that this is eternal and he has only changed form, but he's still here. And it's like, no, like you said, we're still human and we're still going to miss that person, that we don't get to hug them anymore. We don't get to go to their house anymore and hang out with them. We don't get to see them at Christmas, whatever it is. And so it's still different for us. There's still something we've lost, even though we know that. And it's okay to do both. So I think that's a really powerful lesson. I think it's also important and beautiful to have people like yourself who are at least slightly on the more like skeptical side. Like you said, you're kind of put to the test, like, do I really believe this stuff? Like, I've been immersed in this and I've been talking to all these people, but now, like, is it real? Is that actually what I think? Because when we're the opposite way around and we just believe anything, we're less believable too. So you're a great medium for this content to come through for that reason. So yeah, but you find yourself, I'm sure, being more and more convinced of what you
Well,
know.
yeah, I mean, I think I've kind of made that transformation now. I mean, but here's the thing, and I say this now at the beginning of the film, I say, look, don't take anybody's word for anything. You know, you're going to see some people in this movie that are going to tell you, you know, their experience, and they're going to tell you some pretty unbelievable things, but don't take anybody's word for anything, you know, but instead use everything that you see and hear in this film as a springboard to discover your own inner wisdom and your own highest truth, because that's the only thing that really matters. And I actually stopped the film 3 times to do a guided meditation. And in the guided meditation, I invite the audience, whoever's watching the film at that moment, now you've heard from these people on these topics. Now is the time for you to go within and you decide what your truth is on this. And I literally give people an opportunity to stop. And the response, people love it. You know, and it's only 2 minutes, you know, and there's some music playing and all that, but it's an opportunity for people to become their own highest authority, because that's really what this is about. Taking our power back, you know, it's not just taking anybody's word for anything, but it is about being open. It's about listening, considering. But I believe, you know, and I'm guessing probably you're in this camp, and probably a lot of the people watching this are in this camp. You know, we have inner guidance, we have inner wisdom, you know, and the opportunity, the challenge / opportunity is to put the world aside, at least for a few minutes, and go within. Now, the problem with all that, and this is, I think, why a lot of people may not do this, at least regularly, is then we also have to take responsibility for the choices and decisions that we make based on that guidance, right? You know, it's like, it's much easier to blame the government or blame the church or blame our neighbor or whoever for, you know, the choices that we're making. Whereas, you know, now I'm saying, wait a second, I'm going to become my own highest authority. But, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. And actually, power and responsibility are the same thing. Talk about that in my book. I'm going to plug my book for 1 second.
Yeah. Tell us what it's called.
Be bigger than you think you are, overcoming our self-imposed limits to have the life you want.
That's awesome.
So, you know, we have to be willing to take responsibility for the choices then. We can no longer, you know, blame somebody else for telling us something that, you know, may or may not have been true. And here's the other thing too. I ultimately do believe there's like one ultimate truth, but we're so far removed from that. And so we all have our own interpretations, and that's part of the process. You know, that's part of the process of being human, making choices. That's why we have free will. You know, because every choice has a consequence, you know, and sometimes it's a positive, good consequence. Sometimes it's not so good, but that's how we learn and grow. And if I'm constantly blaming everybody else for my choices or how I feel, I mean, this is the biggest, you know, the ego. It's, you know, you make me feel, talking about somebody else. Now, some days it's, oh, baby, you make me feel so good. But a lot of times it's, you know, oh, you know, you make me feel so bad. I'm so angry. It's your fault. I'm not taking responsibility in those situations. Now, again, it's not to say that other people don't act inappropriately at times. I've acted inappropriately plenty of times, especially when I was in my addictive behaviors. But it is to say that I still have to decide how I'm going to respond to those people in those situations. And ultimately, that's how we establish our sovereignty. We can't be sovereign spiritual beings or human beings if we're not willing to take responsibility for our reactions, the way we respond to those situations.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. That's like the thing that if we could have everybody really understand that, it would change the world instantly. Yeah, and I go a step further and I say, you're actually responsible for 100% of the experiences you have too, even when it seems to you like someone did them to you. It is still your responsibility. It's just at a higher level than you're currently possibly aware of. The karma and the soul contracts, right. And that goes maybe beyond your head to some degree, but here you are, and that's what it is. Lots of people.
Let me add one more thing. Let me add one more thing on that, though. This is really important. And again, I talk about this in my book. Responsibility is not the same as blame. And that's really important to remember, right? Because I practiced law for 20 years. And in the legal world, responsibility means liability. It means you're guilty, right? It's not what we're talking about here, all right? And here's the thing, as long as I think, responsibility equals guilt, then I'm really not going to want to admit when I made a mistake. I'm not going to want to take responsibility because it becomes just more proof that I'm a screwed up person. It's just like more, it reinforces my idea about myself, which says I'm not good enough. I'm a screw up, I'm a slacker, whatever it is. So we're not talking about liability. We're not talking about guilt when we say responsibility, at least I'm not. Instead, again, the way I talk about it in my book is the 3 A's. Awareness, accountability, and action, right? And I learned a lot of this from working the 12 steps. Step 9, we make amends to the people that we've harmed. We do a personal inventory, and then we reach out to the people we've harmed. We make an amends. And so awareness, the first A is recognizing, oh boy, I did something that was harmful to myself or another person. The second A is accountability. I become willing to be accountable for that. And then the third A is action. I get into action to make things right, to mend the relationship, right? Whatever I need to do. Now, it's way more complicated in certain situations. I don't want to put myself in harm's way if somebody else is not open to my, making amends. And I don't have to become a doormat. I'm not groveling. I'm not apologizing because I'm a bad person. Taking responsibility is different than all of that. But the gist of it is, until I'm willing to take responsibility for all of it, I can't change any of it, And so this is all part of that process.
Yeah. Well, and we're not bad people even when we make mistakes. So we can make horrible mistakes. And I'm sure many of us have lived lives where we've made the mistakes we can't even imagine anybody making. And we were the ones making them, in my experience. And so that doesn't make us bad. It's a temporary situation that we're having as an eternal soul. And so we don't want to judge ourselves permanently for a mistake we made in a temporary situation, which again, doesn't mean that it didn't matter, right? We do still have to do that whole process you just described, take accountability, make action about making amends and making response appropriately to what we've done. But it's not a permanent situation, right? We're just having that experience for now. And it also, the highest level responsibility, I think a lot of people are in this question with themselves right now, this battle with themselves of how to see the world. I don't know if you've encountered this, but there's a strong move towards seeing the world as a prison planet, as a place where really dark entities have us trapped here, where we are recycled by jumping into like a trap by going to the light when we die, and that this is all a really horrible simulation that we're trapped in. But one of the things that your film highlights is that we are here by our own choosing. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions, so the basis of the film are these 35 questions. So if you go to the website, everysoulknows.com, 3 words, every soul knows, I listed the questions, and that was how this whole thing started. I had these questions, who are we? What is a soul? What's the soul's relation to source? Is there such a thing as karma? Or is there such a thing as hell? What is karma? Is anybody here against their will? And the resounding response that I got, which I feel for me is true, is that we do choose, this is a voluntarily chosen experience. Now, we've got to qualify this in a few ways. The first is, the part that volunteers for this experience is not the human consciousness that's currently bumping into other human consciousnesses on this planet, and all the stuff that's going on. When we make the decision to come in to incarnate, it's from a much higher level, right? It's from our soul's level. It's from the higher self. It's from the vantage point that sees all the timelines, that sees all the other players that are involved, and recognizes, and this is most important, recognizes that nothing that happens here in the physical in any way permanently impairs, damages, or harms what we really are as a soul, all right? And that's hard to grasp from our human consciousness. Now, all of that said, I do believe, I've been getting into Barbara Marciniak's work. I don't know if you're familiar with her books, Bringers of the Dawn. She was channeling the Pleiadians back in the 80s. And she's written a series of books, and she's still around, I think, and she continues to channel. And she has a lot, and obviously there are people now, you just go on YouTube, and there are people talking about the dark forces, whether it's the reptilians, the Anunnaki, or Arcturians. I don't even know the names of a lot of them. And I think it's quite possible that there's some really dark energy hanging out here, and there's a lot of manipulation and all of that. I honestly feel like that half of us don't, most of us don't have a clue what's really going on. But that being said, I want to be careful how I say this.
Yeah. You and me both.
Yeah, I want to be really careful how I say this. So at a very basic level, we're at a very basic level, we're here for the contrast, right? We're here because of the duality. In the higher planes, in the higher realms, there is no contrast, at least not like we experience here in the physical. So what does that mean? It means that in order to know the light, there has to be darkness. In order to know good, and here, in order to know ourselves as good, there has to be evil in our experience, right? And without that duality, this becomes a meaningless, there's no point really in being here, right? So in a sense, we need the darkness to know ourselves as light. And we can almost be grateful to the dark for giving us that opportunity, right? And somebody is playing that role. Some soul has chosen to be the bad reptilian or whatever it is. Apparently there are some good ones too. But beyond that, and Barbara talks about this, and I've heard this elsewhere, at one point in time, I was probably one of those reptilians, and I probably was not such a good guy, because we play all these different roles. We come back over and over and over. You got to remember, if life is eternal, eternity is a long fucking time. A lot can happen, right? And in fact, all of it happens, right? And so I, at one point, was probably on the dark side. I may still be, actually, and since all lives are really they're not sequential, they're simultaneous, there's actually part of me that is the dark side right now, So I want to be really careful. It doesn't justify in any way evil or inappropriate or exploitive or harmful behavior, right? And yet this is what we signed up for. And I believe we came in knowing, I think we came in knowing all of it, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. But then we have this thing, which we also cover in the film, the veil of forgetting, where we forget everything when we come in, most of us. And there's a reason for that. It's not just to toy with us. It's not to torture us. That's what makes the experience meaningful. Imagine if you were, taking the final exam on all your college classes and you knew all the answers. The first time it might be kind of fun. The second time it might be kind of fun, but eventually it would render that experience meaningless. Mm-hmm. There would be no purpose to that. The other thing that the veil does is it makes our choices pure, right? We really have to choose in that moment. And what are we always choosing? We're always choosing who and what we think we are. Mm-hmm. Every decision, every choice we make is an expression of who we think we are. Yeah. So in a way we can be grateful, because it's like the world is mirroring back to me my thoughts and beliefs about myself, why I'm here, who I am. And if I want to know myself as love, And if I want to know myself as light and experience that, because on the other side, we know that, like in the higher realms, we know that, but we don't really experience it the way we do here. The analogy I used, which maybe you've heard, up there, it's like reading the book on riding the bicycle. On Earth, not only do we ride the bicycle, but we fall off and we scrape our knees. And not only do we fall off and scrape our knees, but all our friends are laughing at us. Yeah. It's a whole different experience, right? So the contrast is really important. You know, is it a simulation? Is it a game? I guess in a way it is, but I don't want it's something that we've chosen, and it's something that, and here's the thing, what we take back with us is the expansion that we experience by overcoming these challenges, by choosing light in the face of darkness. Again, if you have a chance, listen to Christian's interviews, Christian Sundberg. One of the things he describes is that before he incarnated for the first time, he met a soul on the other side. And that soul shone brighter than any soul he had ever seen before. And he went to the soul and he said, why are you so bright? What? And he says, I went to Earth, I went into the physical plane, and I overcame the challenges that we face there. Mm. So we take something from this experience that helps expand us and grow our soul, right? So there's value in the darkness, in a sense, you know, and, you know, in the scheme of things, you know, this is, I mean, we're already all that we want to be. We're already enlightened. We're already, you know, part of God. But eventually, I think we can't experience that. So we have to forget all of that and come into density and come into form in 3D and fall off the bike, right? And scrape our knees and maybe our elbows and then have everybody laugh at us. You know, that's part of the process. It seems cruel in a way, but we're choosing that. And I think the best explanation I have, if you remember Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, that series of books, at one point, you know, he asked God, well, why, you know, if everything's so wonderful in heaven, why would we bother? Why do we do this? And the answer he got is basically there's nothing else to do. You could just sit in eternity forever in bliss, but eventually you stop experiencing the bliss because there's no contrast. There's nothing to. He says, in the absence of that which is not, that which is not. Mm-hmm. I also tell people, read Mayor Baba's book, God Speaks, and all you have to do is read the dedication. It's the first page in the book, the dedication. He dedicates the book to the universe, meaning the physical universe, the illusion that sustains the reality. Right? So we can't have the reality of God, of heaven, whatever you want to call it, without the illusion of 3D, physical, you know, however you want to call it. We need the contrast to actually know and experience that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. It's purifying as well. You know, you can choose something, not really understand or care why you choose it, or you can choose something knowing exactly where the limit is and like why you're choosing this and what the effect of it is. You know, they talk about in the golden age, it's actually harder to become enlightened, right? If we imagine the golden age coming to Earth and how good would it be? And it's going to be great, and we're gonna have less suffering, and there'll be more peace, and also everything you do will be slower on the spiritual level because everything is light. And if you're a candle this big and there's a candle next to you that big, you're not even quite sure, like, I don't know, what is my flame, right? Like, how bright is it? Like, it's hard to say because everything's so bright. But here in the dark age, which is where I believe we are, it is much easier to say, oh, I'm not that, and I'm not going to be this. And even this tiny amount of what we might call darkness or evil in any of my decisions or motivations, I can see how that grows and becomes larger. So it's easier for me to say, no, not even that, right? My boundary is actually here. It's a strong boundary, and it's there for a reason. I know exactly why I put it there and what it's for. Somebody could do all that for us, but what would be the purpose, right? I look at toddlers walking around, right, and they're falling down and they're hitting their head on things, and you're like, man, that seems cruel too, right, in a similar way. And also, would you ever rob them of the joy of learning to walk? No, they love it, right? It's one of the most triumphant moments that you can achieve as a human in your young life. So it's similar to that. And when people say to me, I'm not coming back, I don't want to, I say, well, I don't believe you, but enjoy that illusion while you have it. Pretty sure you'll come back, but we'll see.
I mean, I don't, Yeah, I mean, there may be some people who choose not to come back, and maybe they're ready to take on another role as a guide or something like that.
Maybe.
I don't, if you're not coming back, that's great. Look, the one thing that I can't argue with is life here is hard. Life is rough. I mean, you said that to me the other day.
Yeah.
It's tough. Life is tough here. It really is. But when I know that I chose this, and I know that at some level it's benefiting my soul, and in a way, it's like, why does somebody climb Mount Everest? It's for the challenge, right? And the satisfaction of coming through that and coming out on the other side. I will say this, if you're really interested and you're not familiar, read the Law of One material. In the Law of One material, they talk about that there are universes where there is no contrast and there is no veil, and growth doesn't happen. There's no advancing of that soul. Now, again, the soul does not have to advance. We're already all that God is, that we wish to be. But we can't, I think the paradox, and again, Meher Baba, Indian mystic, he talks about this in God Speaks. I don't need to, all right. So there is a real benefit, a real value in, I don't want to say suffering, but in the pain of this existence. Suffering is optional. Pain is very difficult to avoid. The suffering is a judgment based on the experience. And if I'm willing to look and say, okay, there's everything that's happening is, it's kind of trite and cliche at this point because everybody's saying it, but I believe it's true. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. What is the gift in this? What is the lesson? What am I here to learn from this? With the understanding that I chose to be here. I chose this. I signed up for this. And some of us have pretty elaborate life plans, soul plans, pretty detailed stuff, and we choose those challenges and we do it for a reason. And again, I'm not condoning anybody's bad behavior. I'm not saying, you deserve. And here's the other thing. This, again, maybe I said this earlier, I'm going to say it again. If you are in a challenging situation, a health crisis, a relationship that's ended, some kind of trauma in the world, none of this, when we talk about soul planning, which we do in the film, none of this is meant to blame you for that experience. All right. Again, it's not the human consciousness that's choosing any of this. We're clueless as a human egoic mind. It's at the higher level. It's at the soul level where there's a whole different perspective. None of this is seen as a problem for the soul. And in fact, for many of us, it's an adventure. Give us, some of us, one of the people I interview in the film, he says, a lot of souls, they bite off more than they can chew because on the other side, they're gung-ho, give me that disability, give me that horrible marriage, give me that abusive spouse. And again, it's not to make light of that. I had my own challenges with addiction and growing up in an alcoholic house and all that stuff. And it's not random, and we're not being punished, and this is not to torture us. At some level, we've chosen to have that experience.
It's a hard pill to swallow, and it's true. And it's true in our experience. It's not true because someone said so and whatever, but you can find out and you can know it for yourself. And, it comes back to the purpose of the film. What every soul knows is this is actually what we know. And you can know it by hearing the people in the film talk about it. You can also know it by, like you've said, going into your own discernment and going into your own experience and grappling with that there and letting it emerge there, because it exists within you. And I'll come back to this too. We always have come here with this purpose. You are one of the people blessed enough to have understood much of, if not all of your purpose in coming here. Do you have, by having talked to all of these people and created this film, What Every Soul Knows, have you any advice to people? Because this is the question I get most often. One of the questions I get most often as a spiritual healer and teacher is, what's my purpose and how do I know it? So do you have anything you want to share with people on that topic?
Well, first thing I'll say is I'm a lot older than probably most of the people think, or I don't want to give away my age exactly, but I'm well past middle age at this point, right? So my point is, it took a while for me to find out what my real purpose was. Now, I would say this, what's your passion, right? And then what's for the highest good? Because we hear a lot about manifesting what we want and getting what we want and, all of that. For me, I'm at that point now in my life where I'm saying, when I can, I still have my moments, but, what's the highest good for everybody? What's the highest and best for everybody? because I think that's where the soul is coming from when it chooses the life path. It's for the good of everybody. Maybe it's just our soul group. So again, we don't incarnate alone. We come in with a group, right? And we don't plan our lives alone. We plan our lives as part of a group. So there's often, a desire to be of service to others in our group, maybe to humanity at large, by making some kind of a contribution. So, and then trusting that all my needs are going to be taken care of. I'm going to have the money that I need. I'm going to have instead of focusing on all that, trying to get through the world and get the most. And my focus is shifting. Sarah Landon, who's also in the film, her book, The Wisdom of the Council, she talks about true creation. So, and true manifestation. I think she says true creation, but it's about true manifestation, which is manifesting for the highest for everybody. Part of the cosmic plan, or part of God's plan, or whatever you want to call it, Source's plan. And I think once you're willing to do that, buckle up, because stuff's just going to start coming. Mm-hmm. Once you get into alignment and say, this is kind of, some people are going to react to this, but you say it however you want, but, not my will, but thy will be done, mm-hmm. That kind of thing. And you say, or do the prayer of St. Francis, make me an instrument of thy peace. What can I do to contribute to the whole? So it's just going to start rolling for you. That's my experience, at least. And, the testament to that is, look at the people who are in this film. There are people who said yes to this who I would have never imagined would say yes. I did some cool things as a photographer, but I don't have a huge track record as a filmmaker yet and all that. And people traveled across the country. They came from all over the place to be part of this at their own expense, right? I paid everybody a small appearance fee, but the travel they had to cover for themselves. So that just said to me that maybe I am on track with this. This is part of a bigger plan, and I'm just kind of orchestrating my part of it. And so what's your passion? And then, be willing to say, thy will be done, or however you say that. Mm-hmm. God, direct me, Source, direct me. All that is, show me your will, show me the way. I think that again, buckle up, because I think that's when things really start moving, So, and it's not to say that our individual desires are not good or anything. It's not about in any way shaming anybody or making anybody wrong for wanting a nice car or whatever. There's nothing wrong with any of that. No. And I believe we all came to fill a greater purpose. Now, not everybody's here to save the world. We may come to be, the grandparent to a kid who's going to find a cure for cancer. And so our role, our purpose in this lifetime is to be the best grandparent for that child that we can, mm-hmm. So it's not this huge thing all the time, but for some people it might be. But it's basically getting in alignment and getting out of the way, And when I have a whole list of things that I need to accomplish in order to feel happy, because here's the other thing. A lot of us have a whole list of things we think we need to be happy in life. And some of us, especially once you get a little older, well, I got that relationship, I got that car, I got that job, and I'm still not happy. What happened, right? So there's also, that's a whole other discussion, but that's true happiness is not found in the world and in the things of the world. Truly, it's not. And so at a certain point for me, it was just like, all right, I've done, and I just would wear myself out pursuing things, and I would accomplish a lot, but it never was that soul fulfilling experience. So look for your passion, and then be willing to say, how can I be of service in the world? And really mean that, and everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah.
You don't need the vision boards. You don't need you can if you like to do those things, and I've done them, but once you really offer yourself in that way, Spirit is going to use you. So buckle up. Yes,
absolutely. Someone asked me once, to question something like, why you? Why are you allowed to, or, put into this, whatever. I know they're talking about my spiritual gifts. They're talking about my show. I don't know what they're talking about, but they're just asking, why you? And I just said, because I offered, right? Exactly that. Because I said, hey, God, whatever you want, let's do it. And then, like you said, I wish I would have buckled up more. I had no idea really how how it would be. But what you're talking about too is being open to that being something you maybe didn't expect, right? There's nothing like what I expected at all. It was nothing like what I thought I was supposed to be doing at all. It was actually quite different. It was things that I did not want to do. And I've said it before to my audience, I'll say it again. I don't technically want to do this show. I'm an introvert. I would rather not be talking to any of you. That's my preference, right? I love you all deeply. It has nothing to do with you. It's just I'd rather be in bed with a book and not in anyone's public vision, right? But here I am, and that's what I was guided to do. So it might be something that you are like not quite wanting. But I will say, having said that, I'm so grateful for this and for everyone here. I'm grateful I get to talk to people like you, Peter, and I'm grateful for everything I'm doing, and it's helped me grow in ways that I wouldn't have otherwise too. So it is also personally beneficial, obviously, and that's great. But it's I chose to go along with it, right? I chose to do it with all of my heart and soul. So God will use you. God will use you. It's a good offer to make if you're ready for it. And yeah, like you said, you have to mean it and be open to it.
I know the clock is ticking, but we have a clip from the film that we want to show, right?
Oh, let's do it. Yes, this is perfect timing. Okay, so this is the clip from What Every Soul Knows. Do you want to say anything else about it before we show it?
No, I think it'll be self-explanatory.
Heaven is here. There is nowhere else. Heaven is now. There is no other time. Manual for Teachers, A Course in Miracles.
What? Where is heaven?
It's here right now. We are already in heaven, connected to heaven, just deeply focused here into this physical experience. If we change our vibration and our focus, we move very naturally back towards those higher realms of light from which we come.
I think it's close. I don't think it's far. And I say that because when I'm working with my clients, especially when they've lost loved ones that I know have gone to the light, when we call upon them, they come very quickly. So I don't think heaven is far away.
Heaven is a completely other dimension that I went to during my experience. And it seems to, from reading other experiences, be kind of whatever you need it to be.
In my experience, my heaven, when I cross to the other side, is a beautiful garden full of brilliantly colored flowers, lush grass, tree-lined streets.
I don't even know if heaven's the right word for this amazing, beautiful, incredible, blissful place that I got to visit. I know that I'm going to go back to it. I know that it's home. I felt that draw. I felt that experience. I felt that belonging when I was there.
In the afterlife, we don't have all the aches and pains of our body. We don't have to earn a living. We're not stressed about paying the rent at the end of the month. So things are a lot easier. It's sort of like being let out to recess.
After my spiritual experience, I thought that the whole point was to try to get back to heaven. So I thought that I had to do certain things like live righteously, spread the word, do good deeds, and then I would get to go back to heaven immediately. But after I integrated my spiritual experience, I realized that heaven is inside of moments.
Well, the answer is very simple, because right here, right now is heaven.
That's the awakening. That's the evolution in human consciousness. Is that there is nowhere to go. There's no destination. There's no I can't wait until.
When we think of heaven, we usually will put our heads up and look up at the clouds and think that heaven is up here. But if we can understand how this universe works, is that everything is of energy. Heaven, so-called, is the highest frequency of light. So when we think of higher, we're maybe looking up, but it's actually simultaneously here right now. It's just that we are in a lower frequency that we cannot see it.
Heaven is more of a state of being in my view than it is a place or a destination.
It's a feeling. It's a feeling that it was so beautiful that it hurts to remember.
You know, we are we're so connected to heaven. We're so connected to God, and we don't even realize it.
We tend to think that heaven can only be achieved when we no longer have a body. But when you embody the soul, heaven is a regular occurrence.
I experienced heaven when you're so in love and in tune and in peace with yourself, with myself. I have chosen as a soul to not always have God holding my hand as a human being, but when God does come in and hold my hand, it's like a pat on the back saying, good job, kid. You're doing so good. Keep going.
It's a state of being. It's a point of view. It's our natural state. It's giving over and letting go and opening up to being who and what we truly are.
The pain and the conflict that we experience on the deepest levels comes from the belief that we've left heaven and that it was our fault. The most profound perspective on heaven is the recognition that we've never left. Everything in the spiritual path is allowing ourselves to remember that we never, in fact, left.
Beginning at age 12, Lindsay Sharman had a series of out-of-body experiences, 2 of which took her to the center of the universe, which she now believes was heaven.
I was just kind of floating around for a while, and I was wondering what this is, where are we, where am I, what's going on? And I just sort of see this pinpoint of light. It's very distant, and I just feel like I have to go there. Whatever that is, I have to go to that. And it's a very exciting feeling. It's calling me. So I am getting closer and closer. This light is getting bigger and bigger, and I finally arrive at it, and it's finally big enough for me to see what it is. And this light is just a window. And I got to it and I just smashed up against it and I looked through, and on the other side is just this golden land of light. And everything there was infused with light. It was light. There was nothing that wasn't light, but there were hills and there was trees and there's a river, and it's beautiful and gorgeous. And it feels to me like abundance and probably pure love, but I don't know if at the time I even had the concept of what that would feel like, but such a beautiful, good feeling. And I just wanted to be on the other side of that window. And then my guide got me, found me, and was like, not yet, and kind of threw me back in my body. This experience was shortly after the window experience. Again, astral travel that I didn't understand as such. And I'm flying through the solar system, seeing Earth being left behind. I'm seeing Jupiter, I'm seeing Saturn, I'm seeing all of this. And you may imagine this was stunning. And again, very immersive, realer than reality. Nothing about it felt like anything but super clear experience. I could see it all so clearly. And I was in awe of all of it and all of creation, and seeing things that I would later see from the Hubble telescope imagery. And at some point my attention shifts and I see this massive light supercluster, if you can even call it that, if that could even come close to describing it. And it's just giant, beautiful amount of light. I even, thinking about it, like I just want to dive into it. And my guides, my allies, kind of drew my attention eventually away from that, which is hard to look away from because it feels like home. And you don't know why. I didn't know why it felt like home. I just felt like I had to be there. I wanted to be there so badly. And I miss it. I think all of us feel that, and we all miss it. And I just understood. I just knew this is heaven also. You know, and it was physical. I mean, there's physical suns and physical earths, and there's the physical universe. And also this is a physical light, but that also this is our spiritual home. And I wasn't allowed to go into that light. They kind of let me soak it up, but it becomes almost heartbreaking to not be able to just go, especially when you can see it and you're right there and you just know that's home, that's heaven, and I want to go there, and you can't. So having seen the center of the universe and felt that feeling of home and of light and of love and of heaven, there's something beautiful and infinite out there, and we're all a part of it. So decades go by between going to the center of the universe and And now, somewhat recently, a handful of years ago, I am asking my guides and allies, who I've had many, many, many conversations with at this point, I'm asking them, like, can I go back to the center of the universe? I mean, we did it once, right? It must not be that hard. Can we do it again? And I just always get this answer, and you're grounded. And I'm like, why am I grounded? That sounds like a punishment. What did I do wrong? I just sort of say, okay, well, can you just give me a glimpse again? Like, I just want to see it again, or I just want to be close to it again. Can you help me out? And their response came in a series of 3, let's say, vignettes, sort of downloaded into my consciousness. And each of the vignettes is some sort of image of me doing something really beautiful for someone, or really, really kind for someone, or just a really loving sort of experience. And they were all cool, great messages and images to receive. And I just felt it in my heart. And it's the same feeling I felt when I saw the center of the universe. And I realized what they were saying was, that is the center of the universe. Is every time we've loved someone, or loved ourselves, or given someone something, or been kind, or been compassionate, or been in our highest self, every time we felt that feeling that we've all felt, which is our heart expanding, it's our love flowing, it's that feeling, that is the center of the universe. And I saw it. I saw every single person is this light walking around the center of their body, and the center of their energetic structure, and the center of their chakra system is the heart. It's the heart center. And I also understood that was heaven, but this is heaven. And they're not different. And actually, it is overwhelming to think about that if you want to be in heaven, you can just be there. Anytime you can feel love in your heart, you are in heaven, and you're creating heaven around you, and you can share it with anyone as well. And what a beautiful gift that we all get to be, without trying, without asking for it, without becoming better people or perfected beings, that we are still carrying around heaven and the light, and standing within that is a choice we get to make anytime we want to.
There is a preview screening on January 25th here in New Jersey. So if you're in the New York, New Jersey, or Pennsylvania area and you want to come, go to the website, everysoulknows.com. There's the link to buy tickets. I rented out a theater to do the screening there. And then hopefully in the spring, I won't know more until after the first of the year, but hopefully it's going to be completed. And eventually I'm hoping it'll be widely available. My thought initially, though, is to maybe take it on the road, and just because I love watching it with an audience. And so I may do some of that. When we were in Ireland a couple of weeks ago, we did a fundraiser for a local charity, a hospice foundation there. So a lot of people came out for that. And people stuck around afterwards, and we did a Q&A, which was great. So I like the idea of watching it with a live audience. So I may take it on the road maybe for the first 6 months of next year. Then eventually it'll be online. I'm hoping it's available everywhere, all the streaming services, YouTube, and all of that. So the best thing to do is go to the website, again, everysoulknows.com, and watch for updates there in terms of screenings and availability and all that. And there's also another website that's associated with the film that I want to just call people out their attention to. It's timetoremember.org. And this is a nonprofit website that I set up. It has 7 or 8 of the core messages from the film. There's no donations, there's no subscriptions. The only thing I ask is that if you resonate with those core messages, that you find a way to share them. So you can copy and paste the text, or you could just share the URL. It's timetoremember.org and everysoulknows.com.
Perfect.
And my book,
yeah.
If you're interested in my book, it's on my website, bebiggertoday.com. And the title, again, is Be Bigger Than You Think You Are, Overcoming Our Self-Imposed Limits to Have the Life We Want.
Oh, perfect. All of these are beautiful, uplifting, energizing, in alignment content that people can access and call themselves to a higher place and get in more deeper contact with their own purpose here. So I love all that you're doing, Peter. I love being able to be a part of the film. Thank you for that. And all of these links will be below wherever people are watching or listening to this. Hopefully they go check out some of the content. I know they can see a lot of little clips and different things on your YouTube channel as well. Mine is up there as well. I've shared that before.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me just, I forgot to mention that. So there are currently 54 interviews available from the film. So what I did was the full length interview for everybody is currently available on the film website and on the film YouTube channel, which is at What Every Soul Knows. Again, there's no fees, there's no subscriptions. And in fact, I even cut out the mid-roll ads. So you can watch those interviews. Most of them are between 30 and 60 minutes. You can watch the entire interview for everybody because it was really important for me to honor the people who honored me by coming to be interviewed, to make sure that their voice was heard in its entirety. So the entire interviews are available currently, again, for free. Check it out. People are binge watching. And this is the best part. Every morning now when I wake up, there's comments from the videos in my inbox, and people are loving this. People are just so grateful, and we haven't gotten one negative comment, and it's been 3 months and 54 interviews. People are just loving it. And so it's kind of my gift. And I wanted to create a resource where people could go to find out more after watching the film, to go and see everybody's full length interview and just create a resource for people. Because there are people who never heard of an NDE. They don't know what a life review is, so I wanted to have something for them, place to go to get more information.
Wow, I just cut out from all of that, but it will be there for everyone on the recording, so that's good. So thank you for sharing all that. It's all going to be below wherever they're watching or listening. I know that for me, my interview with you is what I call the best interview that I've ever had by anyone. And I've had a lot of interviews by a lot of amazing interviewers, and I'm not trying to cast shade on them. It's just that you got to the heart of all of my core experiences, lessons, and allowed me to share them. So I am very appreciative of the work you're doing, and I am so glad that it's available to people. So thank you. Do you have any final thoughts you want to just throw out to people before we say goodbye?
You know what? Be kind to yourself. For me, my biggest journey in all of this has been from going from being my own worst enemy to my own best friend, and learning how to love myself, how to value myself. It's still a work in progress on all of that. But the only way that I could, and making this movie is definitely being bigger than I think I am. The only way that I can be bigger than I think I am is when I'm kind to myself, when I'm loving to myself. And then that naturally affects how I deal with everybody else, and, so we are valuable, we're worthy. The last question in the film is, what does our soul want us to know? And almost everybody, I got 40 responses, and that is, your soul wants you to know that you are loved, that you are valuable, that you're good, that you're worthy, and so I try to take that to heart. And so I offer that to the audience today. And I'm bummed because the clip I was going to show, your segment from the film is in there, which you haven't seen yet.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so I really wanted to show that.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a bummer. Well, hopefully we can get people to the other resources. It was meant to be, I guess, but I'm glad. Yeah. And yeah, thank you for that message. We are valuable. We need to hear more of that and get more self-love for ourselves and be our best friend, like you said. So thank you. And fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. This has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom according to the knower of the soul, Peter Alessandria. Peter, thank you for being here and for being you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Likewise.
Well, inside, you already know the truth of life, the universe, and everything, because you are a soul, an eternal piece of the divine, entangled with all the light and wisdom, all places at all times. Let yourself remember more and more. And as you do, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Bye-bye.
Yeah! Come on! Rat Kings, baby! It's the rap machine! Yeah! Check it! Great bearded pirate! My motherfucker unknown! Yeah! Come on! In the place with my fist up! bullshit that they feed us and lead us. This is just a part of the process, man. Just watch this, cause this shit's about to get crazy like a mosh pit. We lost it, toss it, let's start it again. Cause now with technology, with smarter men and women, this is the beginning, not the end. If this is the message of hope that I send, look on your TV, it's a culture of death. They'll keep on lying to the very last breath. We keep on striving and spreading the truth. It's hard to survive in this world for the youth. The door is closed, the old world is dead. Let's have an age of understanding instead. I'll include you and you include me. Let's see what we can build with some positivity. Let's go, you're moving too slow. Let me see your hands if you know what I know. Come on.
Rap like mummy, ain't no dummy in my rhyming. Started flowing freestyling, now they rhyming loud silence. On with the violence, bodies piling with the gray-bearded pirate. On your TV in 4K 3D virtual reality. Casualty of urban warfare. I know but I'm not scared, just prepared and aware. Shining my light through the tunnel of hope. Into the rope, but I'ma give it one more pull. Till the family is full. Take the bull by the horns and lead it to the slaughter. That would be harder and you would be softer. Sometimes I'm a monster, and you forever imposter, with your champagne and lobster. This royalty, the way it was supposed to be. Hopefully the new door opens and the old one closes, with way more focus and growth to mold us, and the truth that they should have told us.
To them screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rulers that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The paupers see this mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet. Everyone got a gift, everyone got a light. They want you to forget that ish, cause they can't dim the bright. The positive vibration takes you past the sign shackles, from the sewers and the alleys in the moving castles. Who these assholes really serving with an exposed Achilles surgeon around the corner lurking to prove ascension trumps perversion? Learn them to catch fish and unplug the signal. Show them the simpletons now build the fucking temples.